Hey, welcome to Crosspoint. I'm Vince, and today you're joining us in a series, Not in It to Win It, where we continue to look at what we think Jesus would say about this crazy political season. That's right, we're going there, which is very timely. And today we want to help you out and help you become a little healthier and better on the other side. In fact, Jesus offers us some hope in ways we may not even believe right now. So if you're new and you're not sure what you believe about Jesus, church, or God, we just wanted to let you know that you're in the right place. So more on that in a moment. But first, we'd love to connect with you today. And the best way to do that is to take out your device and scan the QR code and take a moment to let us know who you are, whether you're here every week or if this is your first time with us. And if it is your first time, well, we have a free gift coming to you this week, just as a way of saying thank you for joining us. All right, let's get ready, people. In just 2 weeks, one of the most important things that happens around here all year long is happening, the All-Church Journey. And this year, we're going to be going all in on how we want our city to look like heaven on earth, for beauty and life and joy to overtake our hearts, our lives, and our town. And it starts with you, and it starts with us. So this year's journey is called We Are Crosspoint, as we explore the invitation to be part of Jesus' movement to bring hope to a dark world. More hope, more goodness, more beauty, more purpose. Jesus calls it the kingdom of God. It's who we are, and it's what we do. Now, if you're up for a good party or just looking for a chance to connect with others, we've got some kickoff parties coming up after the early weekend service on Thursday, October 3rd, after party style, and a couple quick connect parties after each Sunday service on October 6th, with bounce houses, fall drinks, and a chance to connect with others as the We Are Crosspoint Journey kickoff continues. So you're not going to want to miss that. And speaking of getting connected, we think this is the most important part of the journey, whether that be shoulder to shoulder in a living room or coffee shop, or side by side in a Zoom window. This is where we get out of our rows and into circles and have the opportunity to connect with others, hear stories, receive encouragement, and to cheer one another on. And today, the We Are Crosspoint small groups are open. So check out this QR code and get yourself signed up for a small group. And if you don't see one you like, maybe that's your cue to host one with a few of your friends, your neighbors, or perhaps a few people you've been wanting to invite to Crosspoint. So just let us know and we'll get you everything you need to be a rock star host. One last shout out, and that's the Commons Coffee Bar here at Crosspoint, which is open all week long. This is not just our lobby, but rather a place to connect, meet for coffee, grab some free Wi-Fi, or just hang out because you like the music and the vibe. We call it the Commons because it's for everyone. So if you're looking for a space outside of your work or outside of office or the home, or just want to meet a friend for coffee, we'd love to see you right here this week. All right, we've got a great service today. In fact, we're going to help you out make better decisions with fewer regrets, especially when it comes to the two topics that we all get a little awkward around, but they just seem to be out front and center right now, and that's religion and politics. So whether you're someone that follows Jesus or someone that's a bit turned off by the whole thing, we get it, and we're glad you're here. So before we hear what Curt has to say, check this out.
Is it getting better? Do you feel the Yeah. I tell you what, if we could just do that, imagine what kind of country we could be. I mean, just imagine what kind of country we could be. You know, a couple years ago, I realized just how difficult that and some of the things we just saw in that video really are. It was a Sunday morning here at Crosspoint, and I didn't see any of this play out, but it was a contentious election season, I think 2 election cycles ago, and there were 2 big SUVs that pulled up right in front of the Crosspoint, like front entrance, like right at the front of our campus. And, I mean, it looked like the Secret Service had pulled in. And kind of decked out on each side of these black SUVs were these like red flags that said "Make America Great." And all of a sudden, there were people coming to me, and I hadn't seen any of this. I just had a stream of people like approaching me, and some of them were like, "Oh my God!" And that was like a prayer, I think. "Oh my God, we're so excited! Did you see just what showed up here? We're so excited about this! Can you believe who's here?" And I had no idea what they were talking about. And then I turned around, and somebody else was coming up to me. They're like, "Oh my God, what in the world is going on here? Like, I just don't know that I can deal with this." And it was in that moment I began to realize, oh, we're all talking about the same thing going on right here. And it just kind of became evident, and it's something that I think we all kind of know and is front and center for us right now, and that's we don't see eye to eye politically. I mean, even within the church, we don't see eye to eye politically, and so if you're uncomfortable with that, I just want you to know you're in the right place. All right, because today my hope is that we can kind of get comfortable with that because there's a lot at stake. So we're going to dig into that today. So welcome to Crosspoint. Man, it's so good to see you all across our platforms, in the room, online. Let's make some noise for those joining us online this weekend. So excited to have you join us across our city, our state, even our nation and our world. And we're in part 2 of this series, Not In It to Win It. And my name's Curt. If you're here for the first time, this is a great time to join us here at Crosspoint because my hope is you're going to get to see a bit of the fabric of what this place is made of, but also what we really believe it means to be people of faith in our world today. And so if you're here for the first time, super excited you're joining us. And so again, this week, I just want to kind of remind us of some things we need to be reminded of as our nation gears up for another round of, I just don't really have another word for it, crazy. We're heading into another like politically crazy season. In fact, we saw more evidence of that even this past week. And more specifically, I want to help us navigate our potential political differences. And remind us of what it is. What does the way of Jesus look like? And what are the things Jesus calls us to? And so, we're here to help. I mean, really, we hope this is helpful. We hope this allows you to kind of navigate and put some guardrails around things. My hope is this brings some peace to you. And perhaps even, bring some like nourishment to your soul. And at the same time, when we come out on the other side, that we're healthier and we're more whole on the other side of this at the end. Because as I shared last week, this is a narrative that I think we just, it's so present in front of us. And I'd read a book a couple years ago that really just spoke to me. And it's kind of the basis of this series. It's called, the same name as the series, Not In It to Win It, by Andy Stanley. And if you're interested in kind of, reading more about, just what this whole idea is, these are available at Connection Point. You can get them in your favorite bookstores. And so when I read this book, I just thought, man, this is a message that those of us who are followers of Jesus, trying to understand what it means to follow Jesus, this is something we all need to be brought into. And, the reality is political polarization is just a part of our in our American landscape. I mean, it's been there for, decades, maybe even more contentious over the last, decade or so. But I think what's disturbing to me, and this is just kind of my opinion, and then we'll get beyond my opinion because I know, that's really what you came to hear. And so, not my opinion, but, I think in my opinion, churches and church leaders, it just began to become unsettling when they began to take their cues, from the political fear that is just cast all over as we go through these cycles. And like national prominent leaders, evangelical leaders, I mean, that we're connected to, and, famous leaders, just all of a sudden were just like doing what everybody else was doing. And it was almost, disheartening, disenfranchised. I don't even know what the right word is right here. But the behavior and the narrative of just so many like high-profile Christian leaders, and especially in the evangelical realm, but really it was all across the board. It was just such a huge turnoff to me. And it wasn't just to me, as I was talking to my friends and, my neighbors and so on that are really not people of faith, but they're looking in, they're watching. It was a huge turnoff to them. And so as I watched all this, and I'm not politically neutral, all right? But as I watched these leaders, perform in these platforms in these ways, the best way I could begin to think of it was, it's almost like we forgot what it's like to be Christian. Not what it means to become a Christian. I mean, we got that down pretty well. But what does it look like to be Christian, to be a person of faith, to be a follower of Jesus, in our approach, in our tone, and in our posture? Because it just seemed like, all of those things had nothing to do with what we were seeing with the character and the identity of who Jesus and what he was about. And so this is kind of the reason I want to spend a few weeks on this. And, because I just felt like we have this very unique challenge in front of us right now. And again, you know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We don't see eye to eye politically, even within people of faith, which is okay, which is totally okay. And again, if you're uncomfortable with that, then I just want you to know you're in the right place, because I want to help us grow in our comfort with that, because there's a lot at stake here. Now, here's why I say that it's okay if you're not comfortable with that, because you've been here before, all right? Maybe in other realms, maybe in dating relationships or in a marriage or in your home life or the home you grew up in, all right? You know that disagreement is unavoidable. I mean, we're going to disagree on things. It happens at work, it happens at home, it happens, in relationships, civic, settings, it happens in the church. All right? And so disagreement is unavoidable, but here's where the tension comes in, and here's why I think it's so important we're talking about this right now. Division is different, because, see, division is a choice. And again, you've experienced this at home. I mean, there's been moments at home where you've had disagreements with people in your home or people you live with or roommate with, and yet you've said, we're not going to, break our friendship, or we're not going to break our marriage. We're not going to divorce over this. Or you've had a lot of disagreements where you're like, I'm not going to let this rip us apart. And so, disagreements are unavoidable, but division is a choice. And yet we're in a nation right now that just continues to seem to choose division. And, in my opinion, and again, not that that's what you came for, but it just seems like we can't get away from that. And yet for the church, the goal of the church and what Jesus' dream for the church was what we just heard in that song, that we would be one amidst our disagreements, that we would still be one. And so here's why this tension is a good thing. Because it's in this tension, when we disagree over things, this is where we actually learn and grow. All right, it's in this tension oftentimes that we say things. We go, oh, wow, that's just the way I've always thought. Or, wow, okay, that's just what I was raised to believe. Or, wow, I was just always told that people like you. And so whenever you have those, oh, wow moments, see, that's a moment where you can actually learn and grow and say, okay, what about my attitude or my perspective perhaps do I need to change? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to change your political, opinions, right? That'd be a massive transformation. All right, I don't know that we're going to quite go that far, but my hope is you might, see things differently, but we begin to realize, wow, maybe I don't have it all buttoned up the way I thought I did. And one of the things we like as humans is we want to have a buttoned up worldview. We want to know that the world works exactly the way we think it works, and the things I believe are exactly the way I believe. In fact, let me just kind of illustrate how this plays out in such unique ways, in a very non-political way, yet still pretty emotional. Whenever I do, a wedding for a couple, one of the things I'll have them do is do some premarital counseling with a trained, family systems therapist. And one of the reasons I have them do that is I like them to take an assessment called Prepare and Enrich. And it's an assessment for people that are getting married, and it just baselines all the things from our family of origin that have shaped us. Things like, how do you see marriage? How do you see work? How do you approach money? What's your expectation with sex and raising kids and religion and faith and community involvement? Just all kinds of things, all kinds of metrics. And it basically baselines the couple, and shows where they are and where they see things similar and where they see things, different. And so when my wife and I did this 29 years ago, right before we got married, same assessment. They've updated it a few times, but we met with a therapist named Dr. Cox, and he told me a story. I think he was trying to convince us on why this is important, but he said, he told us about a couple he'd had in just recently before that, and they were so in love. Everybody saw it and knew it. It's like they were the perfect couple. They're the couple that's like, we're in love, and we don't care who knows it, And so, they're just like everybody thought, they're made for each other. And, they got married, and then 3 months later, they show up back at his office. And she's pretty much like, yep, I'm ready to get a divorce. And of course, her husband's like, I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, it just seems like everything was going so great. And and she couldn't even like say why it was. And he's like, I don't understand. I do all these things to show you that I love you. And my life revolves around you. And so, Dr. Cox, asked her, he said, well, why do you want to get a divorce? She's like, well, and he said, yeah, this is what I get. And so finally, she just said it. She said, well, here's what it is. She's like, he doesn't wash my car on Saturdays. And he was like, that's what we're here over? I mean, I do all these things to show you how much I love you, and this is over like, but I just don't happen to wash your car every single Saturday. And she said, yeah, that's it. And he said, well, what, like, okay, so what's that have to do with like where you guys are at? And she said, well, because, growing up, my dad washed my mom's car every single Saturday. And my mom would go, oh, that's one of the ways I know that your dad loves me. And so in this moment, I mean, her worldview, this moment had really nothing to do about her new husband, but when our worldview gets threatened, or our understanding of like what we think the world is supposed to be like we get all stirred up, and all of a sudden we get all defensive. And so, believe it or not, political disagreement is usually fueled by divergent life experiences, not a low IQ, just in case you were wondering, right? Because some of you are like, well, Curt, the reason the Republicans do what they do is because they're not smart. And the reason the Democrats do what they do is because they're so stupid, right? I mean, it's like the other party's IQ is just so low. Or we say things like, well, they're, they just have a lack of character. Or, they're just so evil. These evil Democrats, these evil Republicans, And you know what you do when you do this? Whenever we like go to that and we just put everybody in the same clump, you know what happens? You actually do unto others exactly what you don't want others to do unto you, right? Because in those moments, what we do is we end up sizing them up. We're kind of writing them off, and we're stereotyping them. Now, I don't know everybody personally that's here with us today and tuning in online. I mean, but here's what I know about every single one of us. What I know about every single one of us is you don't want to be sized up, written off, or stereotyped, right? I mean, we say, wow, I mean, they're a Republican. That's why there's those weird Republicans. Or that's why, there's Democrats. They do the same thing. It's just the crazy Democrats. We say these things. Listen, you don't want to be treated this way, but guess what? Neither do other people, but we end up doing to others exactly what we don't want others to do to us. And so here's the thing, like as Jesus followers, I mean, those of us that are saying, okay, yeah, I'm a person of faith, even if you're not a Jesus follower, let me just be honest. I mean, this is like the golden rule 101 right here, right? I mean, I think we all, regardless of faith, you grew up with the golden rule, do unto others as you would want done unto you. Like, you don't have to be a person of faith, I think, to assent to that. It's like the low level, like this is just being a good human right here. But see, for Jesus followers, we don't go there because Jesus didn't go there. I mean, Jesus, he could have wrote us off, right? He could have stereotyped you. He could have sized you up. But guess what? He didn't go there. And so we don't go there. Because see, God in his grace and mercy, he loved you anyway. He loved me anyway. Now, if you're not a Christian, if you're not a person of faith, have at it, man. You can, none of this applies to you, right? You can demonize people, criticize people, make fun of people. I mean, all you want. I don't recommend it. I'm gonna be honest. I think your life would be better if you, treat others the way you want to be treated. But you're not necessarily under this. But for those of us that would say, no, I'm somebody who aligns with Jesus. Jesus was like, here's what you're to do. You are to love one another. All right, even if you don't agree with one another, in fact, especially if you don't agree with one another, you should love one another. Now, this love one another thing, it's not just some feeling Jesus has, right? Oh, yeah, we love everybody. Oh, I love you. I love that person. So I have such warm feelings in my heart. No. Read the authorized biographies of Jesus' life, the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Jesus' love was very active. It was very external. I mean, it leans in. It doesn't push away. I mean, he's always like, you don't have to necessarily agree with someone to love someone. Because after all, that's what I did for you. And so we can actually disagree politically, and yet we can still love compassionately, right? Somebody like, Curt, I don't know. I can, if somebody doesn't like the Colts, I can get by with that, right? If you live in Indianapolis and you're not a race fan, we might live with you for a while, right? But like, seriously, politically, and see, this goes back to what we talked about last week, which we'll get to in just a moment, the law of Christ. All right, Jesus said, hey, I want to give you a pathway. I want to give you a way. I want to give you some guardrails. And it wasn't like, hey, here's 10 new rules. All right, they'd already done that. I mean, the Old Testament had 613, 617 laws. I mean, Jesus wasn't bringing that. What Jesus did in this moment is he reduced all of life. I mean, literally. He reduced all of life into one transgenerational, transcultural, relevant command that has the potential to change everything. He said, I want you to love one another as I've loved you. So you must love one another. In other words, Jesus has modeled for us one another love and what it looks like. Now, this was to his team and the guys in the room at that moment. I mean, you can check this out for yourself, John 13. The guys in the room, they had so many differences. All right, he says, yeah, this is just what I'm calling you to do. He's like, I don't want you to do love the way you've seen it happen. I don't want you to do love the way your family's modeled it for you. I don't even want you to do love the way you're comfortable with doing love. He says, no, I want you to do it the way I've done it for you. I tell you, this is one of the reasons I'm really excited about the all-church journey coming up. You guys excited about the all-church journey coming up? Come on. It's going to be one of the best things. It happens all year, as Vince said. Next week, we're ramping you up, and then we're going to do 7 weeks. We're going to do 7 weeks on what does it mean to not only allow the kingdom of God to continue to grow in us, but it starts in us and it goes to others. And this is really who we are at Crosspoint. I mean, it's in us, it goes through us. It's why we're here. We're here to bring more beauty, more love, more goodness to our community. And we believe when those things begin to get elevated, guess what? Everybody wins. Everybody wins. So I hope you're planning now for how you can be a part of the next 8 weeks. And if you're not in a small group or haven't been in one, man, I really hope you'll give it a shot. In fact, registrations are open. You can sign up today. And if as you've already heard, if you don't see a group that you're like, man, none of these fit for me, that just might be your cue to say, hey, maybe I need to start one myself. Maybe I need to get a few of my friends together. Let us know. We will give you the resources so you can do that. And I'm guaranteeing you, there's going to be some really, really cool things God's going to do over these next few weeks as we journey together. Say, okay, what does it mean to be and bring more of God's goodness into our world? So Jesus says, I just want you to do for each other what I've done. And then here's what he says to them, about to do. See, they hadn't seen anything yet. I mean, this is right before he goes to the cross. That's where he's saying, hey, I know it's hard for you guys to understand, but I'm about to do something that's not only going to take your breath away, but it's going to take your excuses away and it's going to take your sin away. Meaning the thing that Jesus goes to do over the next couple of days, we're still talking about today. And the reason is because he showed love in spite of this reality that many of those following him, they were still wrong on a lot of things. All right, there were still a lot of things in their life. He was showing us that God loves us even in spite as we continue to be wrong about things. And see, here's the crazy thing. Here's what kind of levels the playing field right here. See, God loved you. Think about this. God loved you when you were wrong about him. I mean, before you ever turned an eye to God, I mean, before whatever that moment was, before you even gave any attention to God, guess what? He loved you. And he says, hey, I just want you to do that. I want you to do that for everyone else. He says, God loves you. And this is even more amazing. And I hope you don't get offended by this. Maybe a little ruffled under the feathers, but not offended, all right? Get this. God loves you in spite of your misinformed, experience-based, evolving views, even politically. To which I know some of us go, oh, what do you mean, Curt? I don't have any evolving views. Sure you do. Everybody has evolving views. I mean, your views today aren't the same that you had when you were 16, right? And the views you had at 16 aren't the same that you had at 21, unless you're 21 right now, and then you've got it all figured out. And you're like, man, everything is perfect. I know exactly the way the world works, right? And then you get to 31. You're like, oh, yeah, there's a major outages back there. And then you get to like 51. You're like, wow, I am so embarrassed. You ever have those moments where you look back if you're like 50 or older, and you're like, wow, I'm so embarrassed. This is how I did this, and this is what I thought. You know what that's called? That's called growing up right there. That's called maturing. That's what that is right there. All right, so back to Jesus' point right here. God loves you in spite of your misinformed, experience-based, evolving views. And what he's inviting you and I to do and into, and he more instructs than invites, is he says, no, I just want you to love one another in spite of them being misinformed. And I know the argument. We go, yeah, but she's so wrong. And Jesus says, yeah, I get that, but I want you to love her anyway. Yeah, but like she's wrong. I mean, I'm right. What I'm standing on is right. And it's like Jesus would say, yeah, but is that the litmus test for love? That you only get love when you're right? To which we go, okay, well, I guess not. Okay, well, I want you to love her anyway. Yeah, but her whole posture is based on her experience. I mean, that's different than my experience, all right? I mean, she's not grounded on anything. He's not grounded on anything except his personal experience. To which I think God would say, yeah, I hate to tell you, but so is yours. I mean, your worldview is based on your experience. How about we just do for others what you would want done for you? And this is the more important part. This isn't just like about playing nice right here, all right? This is bigger than that. This is mission critical. This is strategic. This is way more important than just being nice, because see, at the end of Jesus' ministry, all right before he's arrested, right before he's crucified, I mean, he puts it out there. I mean, he says it. He says, hey, I've given you one thing. Here's what I want you to do. He's like, everybody look up here. I want to see everybody's eyes. He's like, I want you to love one another as I have loved you, so you are to love one another. And then he says, by this unique brand that stands out among what everybody else is doing, by this, everyone's going to know that you are my followers. Everyone's going to know that you're my disciple. If you not vote the same way, if you not get baptized the same way, he says, no, if you love, if you treat one another the way I've treated you. So this isn't just like be kind and get along, right? This is mission critical right here. In fact, get this, the more we disagree, think about this, the more we disagree politically, the more noticeable, the more notable, the more stand-outish it becomes when we remain one in spite of our disagreements. Another way to say that is the more politically diverse. Think about this. The more politically diverse we are, the harder it's going to be to love one another. And as a result, the brighter our light will be. Had a number of interesting conversations after last weekend, really cool conversations on many fronts. And one individual came up to me and just thanked me. They said, hey, thank you so much for just kind of unpacking in this higher call. And this was somebody who's newer to Crosspoint, somebody who got baptized last Easter, newer to faith, and literally said, the things you talked about last weekend, I mean, this whole idea of, we say we're about certain things, but then, the rubber meets the road, and all of a sudden it's like we're everybody else. She's like, that's the very reason I never came to church. It's the very reason I just always stayed away from faith. And I just looked at her, I said, man, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm glad that you trusted us enough. And then she looked at me and she said, but it's okay to be a Republican or a Democrat and be a Christian, right? I'm like, absolutely. Because see, that's not a narrative that we hear. It's okay to disagree, to have different views. But how do we remain one? Because that's what shines. And see, here's something that we all know, but I'm going to say it anyway. Getting along with people just like you, like that's not amazing. That's just normal, right? I mean, but loving and serving with folks that are different than you, have a different worldview than you, different political views than you, that's amazing. And ultimately, as we're going to see in just a moment, that's ultimately what changed the world. In fact, here's how Paul puts it. All right, and Paul right here, he's talking to these provinces and these cities in this area known as Galatia. And here's what he says. He says, here's how I want you to do this. I want you to carry each other's burdens. All right, to which we go, okay, okay, what does that right there have to do with anything, Paul? Well, he explains. He says, okay, see, here's what happens. When you carry each other's burdens, you know what that does to me? That actually causes me to move in your direction. When you carry my burden, you know what that does for you? It actually causes you to move in my direction. And you know what you begin to discover when you do that? You begin to discover that our differences are more understandable than you may have ever realized. And you begin to get a better picture of why I stand for the things I stand for, because it's based on where I sit and what I've experienced and what I've seen, and vice versa. And more importantly, he says, when you carry one another's burdens, he says, in this way, you'll finally fulfill. And then here's our little phrase right here. He says, this is actually how you fulfill the law of Christ. Meaning when I move in your direction, regardless of how different we might see the world or how our worldview or our political view may be different, when I get up and under your burden, whatever you're struggling with, even if you cause the burden, even if your irresponsibility caused the burden, all right, when I get up and under your burden and I carry that with you, I learn something about you. And I learned something about me when I modeled the law of Christ. And what I begin to discover is when we choose to carry someone else's burden, what divides us begins to diminish. Now, let me give you another example of this in a very non-political way. Back when I was 19, 20 years old, my wife and I, we were dating at the time. We were these young college students, and we began doing something on Friday nights together. We started going into Pendleton Reformatory, this maximum security prison, just a handful of miles up the road from right here. And this is like little Curt Walters, a little white, naive Curt Walters, and little Julie, Macy at the time. And here we are going to this maximum security prison with this group of people to serve these inmates that are on like life terms, 40-year terms. And I just remember going in there for the first time. That's how we spent our Fridays when we started dating. You're like, wow, what a dating life, right? We go into prison together. And so, I can remember walking into the prison for the first few weeks going, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to connect with these guys on. We are so different. I mean, these are like hardcore criminals, right? I mean, these guys have done things, seen things, experienced things I have never experienced, but I just don't know what we're going to talk about. And so, we'd go in each week, we sit at a table like this, two inmates, two people from the outside for a couple hours. We just talk about life. Sometimes we talk about faith. We talk about just what are you dealing with? What are the struggles on this side of the wall? They'd want to know what we're dealing with. And this crazy, crazy thing began to happen. After a year or so of that, when I began to leave that prison and that prison door would clank behind me and I'm walking out, back into freedom and those guys are walking back into a cell, you know what I began to think about every time I walked through that gate? I began to say this. I began to go, oh my gosh, by the grace of God, there go I. Because I began to realize, wow, man, these guys never planned to be on this side of the wall. There's certain things that happen, certain circumstances that happen, but what I begin to see is that when we choose to carry one another's burdens, all of a sudden what we think divides us actually diminishes. And what begins to happen is what unites us surfaces. See, when we have these, oh, wow, moments, whenever you're stuck in the cul-de-sac of going, which we've all said this, I just don't understand how anybody could think that way. I just don't understand how anybody could vote that way. I don't understand how anybody could believe that way. The moment you begin to find yourself thinking that, you just answered your own question. You don't understand. I don't understand. There's something I don't know. There's something I don't understand about where they sit and why they see the world that they see and why they act the way they do and why they believe what they do. See, this is a learning moment and it's awkward. And it's messy, but this is what grows us, and this is what makes us stronger. And let me tell you, this is actually how the church began in the first century. And this is how the world changed. Listen, there's no way to exaggerate this picture right here of how disturbing these words were from the Apostle Paul. All right, here's what he says. This is what changed the world. All right, and this is what you and I are invited into right here. And this is how we make the world a better place. And this is how we make our country a better place. Here's what Paul said. He said, there's neither Jew nor Gentile. He's like, all right, Paul, let's stop right there. What do you mean there's no Jew or Gentile? Now, for us, we don't fully understand this. But to people in the first century, like, what do you mean there's no Jew or Gentile? Jews are people that are God's chosen people, religious people. Gentiles are people that are not a part of a spiritual family, very non-religious. The gap was so wide in the first century. In fact, this right here almost destroyed the church right out of the box. All right, the gap was so wide culturally, morally. One group was like, these people are so immoral, and the other group was like, these people are so judgmental. The gap was so wide, it required extraordinary patience and extraordinary compromise and extraordinary grace. For these two sides to come together and to be a part of the same group known as the church. 20 years, get this, 20 years after the resurrection of Jesus, they're still trying to work this out. But see, the reason they didn't give up was because they believed, but they also had seen with their eyes that God had done something in the world and for the world. And that the church was to be the message bearer. And so they didn't want this thing between them to get in the way. But I'm telling you, the differences were so vast. And so Paul says there's neither Jew nor Gentile. neither slave nor free. And they're like, all right, time out, Paul. What are you talking about? Neither slave nor free. All right, Paul, come on. Everybody knows there's an enormous distinction between slave and free. Come on, everybody knows this. I mean, people certainly in that day knew this. We know this today, right? Paul, okay, there's no slave or free. Paul, are you saying that God values the owner as much as he does the owned? Paul, are you saying that God gives the same amount of dignity to the owner as he does to the owned? Paul, are you saying that there's no difference? Are you saying that God doesn't play favorites right here? Paul, and understand this is in a time when slavery was rampant, and it wasn't, ethnic slavery like we have. It was like poor slavery, like I can't provide for myself, I have to rent myself out. Paul, if this ever catches on, this is going to be the end of slavery. And it actually was the seed that eventually took off. I mean, way too late. I mean, we were way too late on this game. But the seeds that eventually bore the fruit that undermined slavery all over the world, they're sown by Christians. They're sown by Jesus followers, by Christian missionaries. I mean, just as we saw in that video a few minutes ago, I mean, everywhere, in the world where people were hurting and care was brought, hospitals created, it was Christians. Where there were people that were like, hey, we want to grow to new levels. Christians bringing education. Anywhere in the world where the church is strong, think about this today, slavery is illegal. Right? Wherever the church is strong, people are better off. Not because the government made it that way. It's not coincidental. It's not accidental either. I mean, the liberating gospel of Jesus has huge implications culturally. But they don't get voted in. They get raised up and lived out by those who are saying, this is what it looks like for me to follow Jesus. Because it's true. We say this all the time around here. Following Jesus, it makes you better at life, and it makes life better. And you know what it does? It makes the world better too. Now, I don't have to tell you this, but this is so fascinating to me. As we think about where we are in our world, in our community right now, listen, the nature of our community all around us, the demographics of our community, the socioeconomic chasms of our community, we run the risk of being divided on a wide range of issues. And here's the thing, you may never fully understand why somebody who calls himself a Christian could possibly see something a certain way or believe a certain way, and they may never understand why you see things a certain way and why you believe a certain way, all right, whether you're for it or against it, meaning they may never change their view. You may never change your view, all right, but this is what makes it messy and hard. But this is also what makes it amazing. This is what makes it notable. This is what allows light to shine in the darkness. In fact, here's actually what Jesus said about that. He said, if you greet only your own people, all right, now don't raise your hand or anything, but just think to yourself, who's your people? I mean, we all have a people, right? Everybody's got a people, all right? So let me tell you about my people. My people, I mean, they're comfortable. They're people like me. I mean, if I just sit down and relax with people just like me, if Julie and I, all we did was spend time hanging out with people like us, it'd just be easy. See, I think Jesus, when he sees this, he's like, come on, hang on, time out for just a moment, all right? If this whole thing's just about you being with people just like you and being with your people, I don't know that I would have ever put my feet on your messy planet, all right? I just don't, that's not the reason that he came. Now, he didn't really say it that way. That's Curt Walters' paraphrase, all right? But what he does say is if you only greet your own people, all right, what are you doing more? Think about this. What are you doing more than others? Don't even the pagans do that? Don't even the people who don't have a spiritual family? I mean, they do that. He's like, come on, I want you to be different. I want you to be with people that aren't like you. I want you to embrace them, understand them, come alongside, carry their burdens, get to know them. Over time, they may become your people. All right, they may be better people than your people. You just don't know that because you've not spent any time with them. This is here, right here, how our nation got so divided. Because everybody ran to their own buckets, their own people, out of fear. So let's not do that. It never works. Let's do what the early church did. It worked. It changed the world. Slave, free, male, female, Jew, Gentile, Democrat, Republican, love. Not as I want to be treated, but as Jesus loved me. And listen, you and I have an unprecedented opportunity right here. Listen, let's be kind, all right? But also unwilling to call out the unkindness from within our own people. Let's be honest, but also willing to call out the dishonesty, with our party of choice and those who, undermine people's dignity. Let's live and love and lead in a certain way. Let's let the local ecclesia, the church of Jesus, be a place that's for everyone. And let's do what's just, not just what we can justify. And let's do what's responsible, not just what we can, get away with. Let's be others focused, not just, hey, what's in it for me and what's best for me. Let's not settle as just law-abiding citizens, or hey, let's have some patriotic Americans. No, his calling's higher than that. He says, I want you to be Jesus followers. Let's, right here, do everything without grumbling or arguing. So that you, look at this, so you can become blameless and pure children of God without fault in this warped, crooked, messed up world. And he said, man, when you do this, I'm telling you, it's going to be such a contrast, and then you will shine like stars. You will shine among them like stars in the sky. I mean, just imagine what a people we could be. Imagine what a country we could be if we just did that. So let's do this. Let's be amazing. That's one of our next steps this weekend. What if I would go out here and be amazing this week and just not grumble and argue? What if I'm telling you, that will shine like a star in the sky. Let's do that. Let's be the church. Let me pray for us. Heavenly Father, thank you for this higher call. Thank you for rising above the things that we deal with here on this earth. And you care about these things. I mean, these certainly are things you care about. But God, as your people, as people who, those of us who say we align with you, God, I just pray that you would help us to search our hearts and see if there's anything in us that's not standing out, that's not loving generously. And God, it's so hard. I mean, there's so many messages, there's so many things out there that are vying for our lives and our attention and trying to create fear in us. God, listen, you overcame all that. I mean, thank God we don't have to put our hope or our future in our political system or in the things of this physical world, that we can actually put it in things of you and a good king who's going about a different kingdom. And so, Father, I just pray right now as we go into this week and as we continue to navigate this season, that you would give us eyes to see and ears to hear and help us search our hearts and give us the courage to not grumble, not argue. Doesn't mean we don't have convictions. But God, help us to love generously. And most importantly, help us to shine. Help us to be that light, because the world's pretty dark. And even a dark light, a dim light in a dark world shines brightly. So God, help us to know what it looks like to be the church.
Look at the stars. Look how they shine for you, and all the things you do. Look how they shine. Look at the stars. Look how they shine for you, and all the things you do. Look how they shine. Look at the stars. Look how they shine for you, and all the things you do. Look how they shine. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Bones to live, call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Silence fear. Jesus, Jesus.
Hey, so glad you joined us this week, and I hope you've been encouraged today and that you've been able to breathe in and feel a little bit of that peace and that light that Jesus brings. Now, if you'd like someone to pray with you this week, just text this word, need prayer, to 317-834-7373, and a member of our prayer team will be in touch with you later today. And hey, if you're a giver here at Crosspoint, I just want to say thank you for your generosity through the Joy Box. Crosspoint is completely donor funded, and that means that every amount of money you give helps spread the message to our community and our world. And if you're not a giver and you'd like to become one, you can donate it at this QR code. All right, it's great to see you today. We can't wait to see you next time for week 0. That's right, week 0, as we ramp up and get ready for all God has in store for us over the next 7 weeks through our all-church journey, We Are Crosspoint. See you next time.
Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear.